Hey guys, welcome back to Chris and Retro. This week's been one heck of a week. It's been a busy week. Did some travel with work early on in the week and wrapped it up here with this local festival here in our city. I took my daughter down and went around there today. It's been real hot, which is nice. It's considering how cold it is here in the winters. So I apologize if I start sweating here. It's not exactly cool in our house either. but I was asked to present yesterday at an event put on by Nick's Ride here, and I'll share with you that screen momentarily. So this is the event. It was a Recovery Speaks event. So they had many speakers in there, and they've asked me to be involved. Last minute, actually, I was asked to be involved, but it was something that I felt compelled to go do. Now, while it's an honor to be part of these recovery events in a community, I'm actually not part of that Auburn community, but I do know people through there, loosely affiliated with people through my history with amateur fighting, as well as some people through my recovery journey. But what was interesting to me is that I've noticed this pattern to be true. Every single time I'm asked to do something that takes me out of my lazy state, where I actually get more assertive in my message of hope and recovery, almost always there's some kind of antagonistic side of it that tries to drag me down. And I've spoken on the show a couple times about some things that have been going on, and things have been really bumpy for sure on the personal life of the Chris and Retro show. And it manifested itself in some ways that could have been really distracting yesterday. And I found that interesting because my message that I put together, I was asked last minute to do it, and I threw together something just based on the story that I have. And I found that it was curious to me why a story that I don't consider to be all that powerful would have so many antagonistic elements happen. So distractions, some things that aren't all that sinister, and some I absolutely believe were a spiritual context in warfare. But I'm going to share that message with you. So in my normal way of doing things, if you tell me I can't, I will 20 times over. So apparently from a spiritual perspective, I'm being told not to share my story. And so you've heard my story on here a bunch of times. I'm going to put it in context with what I shared with these guys yesterday. And I hope that it's something that reaches you. I view this journey, no matter where I'm at, if you put me in that show in Auburn, New York, or you put me in my own hometown, or fly me to Dallas, Texas, or wherever else I am, I'm a fellow traveler. I don't view myself as an expert on anything. I just understand things from my lens. I am a person recovering from alcoholism. I struggle with things related to alcoholism, including the mental health component to it. Alcohol does still call me, and it calls me in ways that I know is very dangerous for me because of the things that I still work on every single day relative to my mental health. And that it's all fired by, anxiety, depression issues. However, they manifest in fear, procrastination, controlling behavior. Those three things dance together, and if they play long enough in my mind, will ultimately lead to use. In my journey, I've learned a lot of different things, and I've learned all kinds of things. And one of those things is the value of community and what we do for each other and how we connect and how important that is. And that's a lot of why Chris and Retro is here, is to create a community of things to help us see the warning signs of our high risk living, but also offer options of hope when we don't see hope. There was three primary things. I think our war stories really only go so far. So a lot of times if I get into a room of recovery people and I share my war story, and I say war story, it's not really a war story, but I share my mess. Somebody after me is going to say, oh yeah, well, you're a felon for being a drunk driver. Then I'm a felon for killing one person. And then somebody else in the room, I've killed 17 people. I've killed 27 people, and our war stories become almost our brand. And I really don't find value in that. So for me, all I'm saying is this: I drank so much that in the background of my life, I had good parents, good kids, great job, great career, good health. I was still a competitive athlete. I had everything, and yet undiagnosed, untreated mental health had me drink, and I drank to the point that I burned it all to the ground, was homeless. I have no reason to be an alcoholic based on logic, but I am one, and I am one in ways that is so baffling, and I don't understand why. But I am one, and I'm one that I recognize as one, and I won't turn my blind eye to it anymore in the future. I just won't. On September 11th, 2017, I dug my heels in and said, okay, the recovery journey is for me. I'm going to dig in, and this is what my life is going to look like. And so that fight has been going on ever since. There's a few things I've learned in this process, and they're real primary things I wanted to make sure I shared with yesterday in Auburn, but I also want to share with you as my audience. I've made these comments before, but yes, I follow a 12-step program. Yes, I've gone to treatment. I've gotten medication. I've done all these things, but there was more. And what I found is that we can stay at certain levels of recovery and certain levels of work, but there's at some point you're going to be pushed in uncomfortable territories. And if you're trying to get more out of life than what others expect from you, you're probably going to be in uncomfortable territories and will need support from others. But you should also have some basic operating principles. And so here are some 3 things that I've found to be true in my life for sure. Number 1, make promises and keep them. Number 2, change lives, do change lives. And number 3, hope is closer than it seems. Now, you've heard me mention those 3 things on the show before, and I've done it in varying contexts, but I believe in this context, all 3 of them apply together for the overarching view of what life looked like for me and how things got better. Relative to making promises and keeping them, I believe that's the greatest of syndication of a recovery story. Everybody that wants people to believe that they're sober will tell everybody they're sober. And then when they relapse, they have 100 excuses why, or they have 100 reasons why, or they have trauma that's been undealt with that causes them to lead there. And they'll make compromises, or all the things that are preventative measures don't happen. Nonetheless, by just wandering and just committing to nothing, we put ourselves at risk. And we also don't open ourselves up for others to seek ways to help us. And I believe that happens. So when I make a promise, it's not enough for me to keep my promises. People always say, you've heard the cliche, I keep my promises. I'm a man of my word. Well, but if you don't ever make a promise in the first place, you've never really committed to anything. It's real easy. It's kind of a slam dunk to keep promises you never make, And it may seem like I'm making a point that doesn't exist. It actually does exist. You do an inventory of your life right now. And how many times have you told somebody, oh, I always do that. Or or in your own mind might think that you always deliver on things. But how many times have you actually committed to do something by a certain time? So to get there, it's really 3 components to that. And one is your mindset. I shared with the team yesterday, one of my connections to the Auburn community is some amateur fighters that I crossed paths with, over a decade ago. And as a result, our recovery journeys kind of crossed each other's paths as well. In there, mindset is not only just about how you perform on the day that you have to go into the cage, but a mindset is also there in terms of how you train, how you deal with life, how you deal with injuries, how you deal with downtime, all of that. But same thing is true in our recovery journey. Mindset is key. It tells me that I'm going to go forward no matter how I feel. If I feel bad, if a traumatic event has triggered me, whatever it is, I'm still going to go forward because I made the promise I'm going to. Action plan, second thing. When I was incarcerated for the last time, I came up with something called a life recovery plan. And basically, I just was jotting down ideas of things that needed to be done, and basically everything that needed to be done. I put tentative due dates to it, and I assigned an accountability partner to every one of them. And every Friday, I would check in on my life recovery plan. So mindset and action plans. The second one is action plans, and making sure that you have not only just a plan, but one with action and accountability associated with it. And the third piece of that is your promises kept. So the overarching theme here on step 1 was really about your promises made and kept. Well, you actually got to keep them. So if your mindset's right, you've got accountable action plans with due dates, and you keep your promises, over that theme of my journey will have been satisfied. The second thing is I believe that change lives. And I say that wholeheartedly. One of the things about going to events like this is it's really easy to look at the people on stage, people around you. And for somebody like me that I generally struggle with imposter syndrome. Probably as I'm sitting here today doing this show, there's some level of things, even though it's in my own house, my own show, on my own channel, I still somewhat feel like an imposter in some respects because I see others doing so well. We run into the same thing in the recovery community where we'll see somebody speaking, we'll see somebody with a certain look, with how they present themselves. Their story might be very grandiose. Who knows? But we always make it seem like they're the ones that can change and they're the ones that can make a difference in people's lives. Recovery from substance use disorder is different in that we all can change people's lives. None of us are actually going to, in totality, change anybody's life in one shot or ever, probably. But we all plant seeds. The fact that our lives changed at all has the ability to plant seeds. We might do it with a loved one. We might do it with a family member, a parent, or somebody that we've harmed. Who knows? But the fact that we changed is enough to change others and to plant those seeds of hope. The last thing I brought up is in this third point was really about hope being closer than it seems. And it's a very theme of the show. Sign right here. I always do this backwards. Sign right here. Closer than it appears. Hope is closer than it seems, and it really is, but it takes progress. A lot of times hope is just progress. It's making progress. It's moving forward. Um, we had a flood here recently, and watching the guys next door scramble around with a sense of purpose finally, and they all motivated, even though they're fussing about this flood. There are these older people in a retirement community out there, showing a sense of purpose and moving forward. And, they had a certain attitude about them that was, a little bit more walking with some meaning. For us, hope is a lot of times just making progress today. It's really a core element of why 24 hours thinking matters so much. None of us are getting sober in 24 hours. 24 hours is way bigger than just 24-hour work is way bigger than just not using. Not using is the smallest piece of the whole thing. 24 hours is not wasting one single day. It's making these commitments to ourselves and others that we're going to get something done today. And that progress in and of itself shows hope, even if it's a small list of things, as I referred to earlier, like action plans or my life recovery plan I used in jail. If this is a room, and let's say the Kristen Retro sign behind me is a door, this room only has a certain amount of options for me if the building's on fire to deal with the fire, right? But if I walk through that door, and I'm willing to walk through that door, I'm going to see other halls, other doors, other options, perhaps other people that can show me how to get out of smoke. Firefighter, maybe, who knows? But if I stay in the room, I know what my resources are, and it's not improving my situation. I'm still going to burn to death in this house. If I go through that door, I now have options that I've made progress. That's what hope looks like sometimes in our deepest, darkest places, is that progress we make is oftentimes one of our greatest sources of hope, because at that point we may walk into somebody whose life has changed, and that seed might be planted for us. They made a promise and they kept it. They're out there doing the work, and we just happen to cross paths, and you want what they have, and you'll go to any length to get it, and they'll show you how. And then you move. And one step at a time. I'll leave one last analogy here. I was thinking about Marcus Luttrell and his story, Lone Survivor. When you watch the movie, there's one sense you get. When you read the book, there's another sense of what you get. But if you actually hear the interview of this man, he went, I think it was 7 miles or 7.5 miles crawling, paralyzed from basically his shoulders down with a knife. He'd draw a knife in the sand, and he'd dig that knife in and pull himself forward. And then he'd draw another line in the sand, and he'd dig that knife in and pull himself forward. And his mindset was this: if he made it to the line, he was alive to make another line. Sometimes our crawl is that small, and it might be a 7.5 mile journey through the mountains in Afghanistan type life. Like, that chaos might actually exist for us, and we might be that wounded, and we might not be able to get up and run, and we might not have enough ammunition, and we certainly don't have enough food and water. But we can make those we can make that 6-inch draw in the sand and move forward. We can make another 6 inches and move forward. We don't have to do it all. But progress is hope, because otherwise we're just sitting there dying. 3 things in my journey, and what I wanted to make sure they took away from yesterday. You got to make your promises and keep them. Make them, keep them. Know that your changed life actually is changing lives for other people, no matter how big or small you think it is. You never know. There's been many times people have come up to me and talked to me about things that I've done for them that I had no clue. And I can assure you, there are so many people that have touched my life with their changed life that has impacted mine. I could probably never touch them all and let them all know what they've done. And then the last thing is, hope absolutely is closer than it seems. No matter how dark the place you're in, no matter how lost you are, no matter how toxic your relationships are, or how heavy your criminal offenses are, or how sick you are, or how much life you've wasted, or how many people hate you, or whatever else is going on, or God doesn't love you, or whatever, I'm telling you, there's hope. Draw a line in the sand and move 6 inches forward. Open the door. Go to a meeting. Go to your church. Talk to somebody. Appreciate you guys being part of my journey. Thank you for being seeds of hope. There's so many times you guys comment on here, and it's been so stinking encouraging. There's been times that people I don't even know subscribe and are very faithful followers of the show, of the channel. Thank you so much for doing that. And please continue. I'll continue to work to get you content I think matters for you. And if you feel like you want something else out of this thing, please, I accept the feedback, and I'll do what I can for you. Think about the things I'm sharing with you today. Those 3 things that have driven my drive, and maybe you've got more for yours. Share them with somebody else. Have those things help somebody else. Have them think about the ways you think about it. They might hear it differently from you. Consider ways to share your story. Consider ways to pass that story along. And, between now and the next time we talk, please stay out of trouble.